Hello and welcome to a post-game edition of the Silver Bulletin. I'm here with Colin Hass-Hill, the sports editor, James King, the sports director, and Edward Sutherland, the assistant sports editor. So Ohio State just beat Wisconsin 27-21, the Big Ten championship. Let's just go over what was this game like.
I mean, this game was pretty wild. It seemed at the beginning that Ohio State had all the momentum that it needed, and that, like in so many other games this season, the Penn State game in particular, Ohio State was its own worst enemy. The only points that Wisconsin had to begin with was a pick six. The second time that they scored, at least on a field goal, was because Mike Weber fumbled at I want to say it's the 8 or 11 yard line. But Ohio State fairly clearly, at least offensively, dominated what was a very talented Wisconsin defense. Despite the fact that JT had a couple of big turnovers, and Mike Weber obviously had a turnover, Ohio State pretty much dictated how this game went from the beginning, and even though the score was pretty close, the underlying stats tell a little bit of a different story.
And JT, we went into this game, we didn't even know that he was going to be the starting quarterback. And on the second, I think it was the second drive that he hit Terry. He hit Terry for an 84-yard touchdown, longest of his career. That is a sentence that I never thought I would say.
Yeah,
JT Barrett to Terry McLaurin for 84.
For 84.
And from that moment, I was like, wow, maybe they're going to roll. Then he throws the pick six, and I was like, back in it. And then they go down. What happened next? Was that the JK?
I think after that made Paris Campbell.
Yeah. Then they hit Paris Campbell for 55. And then you're like, oh, they're rolling. JK then had his set, was it 77 yards?
Yeah.
I thought they were going to be rolling for really an easy victory.
Yeah, I mean,
not to be that way.
After the first half, I was feeling fairly good about my score prediction. It was because they were
What
up.
was your prediction? Say it.
48-20.
All right.
Now after the first half, they were
Wisconsin.
after the half they were halfway there. I was like 10 points. They're up 10. Put up another 10. The way the offense was looking, go up 10 more. I figured that it could happen, but. Like you were saying, a testament to JT. He came out, however hurt he was, he didn't show it at all.
And I'll say after the game in the press conference, both Urban Meyer and JT spoke about that. And Urban said that after the game, JT told him that he had a little bit of shoulder soreness, but his knee was perfectly fine. He had no pain in it at all. And I mean, that might just be the adrenaline going. I know he did have a little bit of a bandage down there. It looked like a little bit more than normal, but I sort of believe it. He played like the normal JT, and I said this pregame. If JT plays, they're just going to run him like normal. And JT did say he had a conversation with Ryan Day before the game started, where he said, "Just call normal plays. I'll work with what we normally do." And I mean, JT did it. JT did it. I mean, he had the 2 interceptions. Let's be clear. He didn't have his Penn State 16 completion game, but he did enough.
Yeah.
He did enough, and he looked impressive. Especially, I remember that 4th and 1 where he got that 1 yard. I don't think anyone thought he was going to get it.
No, I mean, he was completely wrapped up, bounced it backwards, then came outside some and was able to get it. And I mean, if he had, like I said, if he had a sore knee, if he was dealing with knee problems, it did not seem like it.
And so let's talk about J.K. Dobbins, because he's a freshman starting running back here at Ohio State. He had 170 yards today.
Over
177.
177, and he didn't. Did he score? He didn't score
No,
today.
no scores. Came close twice.
Yeah.
Came very close, but his performance, he helps the team in so many ways. How do you evaluate his performance today?
JK did about as much as I think he possibly could have done, given the amount of carries that he had. Considering that JT was just coming off of knee surgery, even if they say that he's relatively healthy, it is astounding to me that they ran JT Barrett more than they ran JK Dobbins. There was one point where JT and JK were tied. They both had 14 carries apiece. JT was averaging 3.5 yards per carry, and JK Dobbins was averaging 12.5. It really continued to be astounding to me that they didn't hand him the ball more often. Now, granted, I know that part of that is just because they run a lot of read options, and that's sort of how the Ohio State offense works. But for the most part, JK was really one of the biggest reasons why this team won today. Every time it seemed like they needed him to pick up a couple of yards, he was absolutely there to go and just get those yards. And I think that it's still. I'm going to have to go back into the box score because I don't know when they were trying to run the clock out if JK ended up passing JT or came close. I still want to say JT probably had a little bit more, and that's just astounding.
And on his 2 long runs, I asked him about those. He said he got tired. It's been a long season, and he has. Now he passed Maurice Collette earlier this year for most rushing yards as a freshman at Ohio State. There's a lot of good running backs that's come through Ohio State, especially when last year they had a 1,000-yard running back as a redshirt freshman, Mike Weber, and this year, I mean, Mike Weber today, what do you have, 4 carries? He had a fumble. I mean, he did. It's hard to say this, but today he did more hurt the team than helped. And honestly, like, I think Urban saw that. He only had a few carries. JK had 15, 17. I don't know how many he had, but he had substantially more. I'm interested to see in the bowl game if that sort of stays.
Well, I think part of that was Mike Weber's fumble came so early in the game that he just didn't. They just didn't give him the rest of the opportunities. It's not that Mike Weber would or would not have performed if he had gotten those carries, but.
But he's no JK.
Yeah, but he's not JK.
and I think, too, one thing that was sort of important, not just about how early the fumble came, there's probably not a worse place that you can fumble the football than on your own 8-yard line.
Yeah, I mean, in your own end zone, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, probably there, but other than that,
showed him.
I mean, other than that, it's pretty bad to do it that far back. And especially for someone like Mike Weber, who generally has been a guy I think that Myers kind of trusted to be able to hold on to the football. That was sort of one of those moments where it's like you start to lose faith in a running back when in such a pivotal moment in a make-or-break game for the season, they have like a big letdown like he did on that fumble.
And one thing before we get to the inevitable, which I know the question's coming, but the defense did a great job in holding Jonathan Taylor. I mean, they held him to the least yards of the season. They held him to the least yards per carry average.
Around 60 yards on the ground total in the game as a team.
And Taylor had about 40 of them. I mean, for a guy that came in, he has 1,800 yards this year. Incredible performance by the rush defense.
Yeah, just one thing about Jonathan Taylor that I think was impressive is that there are only 2 running backs who have ever compiled more rushing yards in a freshman season than he has. And as a freshman running back, he's a Heisman candidate. It was between bottling up him and Saquon Barkley this year. It's safe to say that Ohio State's rushing defense is about as legit as it gets.
Yeah.
I agree. And so the big question, Ohio State has had 2 losses this season. One to Oklahoma when they were ranked 2 and 3, and a big loss to unranked Iowa. But they beat a ranked Michigan State. They beat a number 4 Wisconsin today and won the championship title for the Big Ten.
And they beat Rutgers.
And Rutgers.
And Illinois.
And their rival Michigan. So, do you think Ohio State has a chance of getting in the 2017 college football playoff?
Do they have a chance? Absolutely. They've got in my opinion, I think that they've got a very good chance. I'm not going to go so far as to say that I think they're a lock.
Do it.
I'm not going to say that just yet.
Do it.
But I will say that at this point, I would give them better odds to make it in than Alabama. I think that Ohio State, you look at Ohio State's resume that they've put up so far this season, that Iowa loss is a real killer. And it's something that Alabama doesn't have on its schedule. But Alabama lost to a 3-loss non-conference champion Auburn. Ohio State lost to a 1-loss conference champion Oklahoma very early in the season. And then Alabama doesn't have a lot of signature wins on their schedule. They almost lost to Mississippi State. I think they did blow out LSU, but Ohio State blew out Michigan State. In terms of total yardage, they blew out both Penn State and Wisconsin. And they got it done against a rival opponent, Michigan, who had nothing to lose in the Big House. I think that the strength of schedule for Ohio State, the dominance that they have shown at times, and just the lack of a strength of schedule for Alabama is probably going to put Ohio State in and keep Alabama on the outside.
Yeah, I think it comes down to whether or not the committee will value a championship game, because last year Ohio State was not a Big Ten champion, but they still got in with 1 loss. I think they're gonna. It depends if they value this Big Ten championship over Alabama's fight through the SEC. Now, Urban Meyer on the stage after the game, when they were interviewing him, he made sure to make the distinction that Ohio State had 2 wins, not over just top 10 teams, but top 4 teams.
Oh, he didn't make that distinction just once. Let me tell you, at the press conference, he made it about 8 times.
Yeah.
I mean, over and over.
And so I think that the 2 wins that they have over top 4 teams, they beat a team today that the committee said last week would be in the playoffs if the playoffs started last week. Alabama sat at home this weekend. I think the difference between that, when Penn State came here last year and won the Big Ten championship, it wasn't against someone who was of a caliber of Wisconsin, and I think that makes a difference. It puts the Buckeyes in.
I agree. I think the Buckeyes. I'm with Ed. Can we call that a lock?
No, it's not a lock.
Okay.
It's not a lock. I said I think. I think.
Okay. I also think. I want to call it a lock and be bold, but I'm just not going to, because I agree. You're talking about the College Football Playoff Committee.
Yeah.
They would have to. Ohio State's at 8. Alabama is. I think they're at 5.
5.
That's a lot. That's a big jump.
That's a big
so
jump.
how can you call that a lock, especially since Alabama is shown to be pretty dominant this year? I mean, you said the Iowa loss was a killer for Ohio State. And in any other year, I sort of believe that. It's just this year is so different. This year is so odd.
This year we're grading on a curve.
This year, there's a total curve.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be a killer. And every single time I think about Ohio State's wins, I think, oh, well, I mean, they did lose by 31 to an Iowa team that can't put up points on anyone.
Yeah.
But this week it sort of does feel different. It's like they now show that they're the best team in the Big Ten. They beat Wisconsin. They beat Penn State. They beat Michigan State. They beat Michigan.
That's
a heck of a resume.
A lot of good
That's a heck of a resume. I think they're in.
Yeah, I think that one of the comparisons that I think is made a lot is comparing this year's Alabama team to the 2015 Ohio State team. Granted, Alabama's not a reigning national champion, but they were the reigning runners-up, and they obviously were very close to Clemson. I think everyone knows that Alabama has the talent on their team, but they haven't clicked this season. They haven't looked the same dominant.
Yeah.
They haven't looked as dominant.
They've looked like a
as
great
they
team,
last
just not a great Alabama team.
Exactly. And then in 2015, Ohio State had Ohio State had one game that it couldn't lose, and it was against Michigan State. This season, Alabama had one game that it couldn't lose, and it was against Auburn. And I think that loss is really going to come back to hurt them, especially now that Auburn is not a conference champion.
Did you want to?
I don't even remember. He made a good point.
Yeah,
He was on a roll. I didn't want to stop him.
That's a very good point.
Are you kidding me?
Kirby Hocutt, just to mention, it did say that there's a slight distinction. There was a slight distinction between the teams 5 through 8. You had Miami lose at 7, Georgia was at 6, right? And they beat Auburn. So obviously they'll slide up. Miami will slide out with their blowout loss to Clemson. And so, like we were saying, it leaves just, like when you think about it like that, it leaves just Alabama and Ohio State right next to each other. And I think this Big Ten championship win gives them the edge.
We all made predictions. What's your prediction?
Yeah. What do you see, Alicia?
I think that Ohio State will make the college football playoff.
Y'all know, no idea how angry I am that no one made a lock. Come on. We're all
I'll
four
say
in the
this,
same place.
how about this? If Ohio State does make it in, it's going to be a lock for a rematch between Clemson and Ohio State.
Oh, that's congrats. That's all. I'm walking off.
No, I do believe that Ohio State will make the college football playoff. I think how you made the point is that when you think of Ohio State, yes, that Iowa loss was big, but you think of all of their big wins, and their schedule was tough, and when they needed to win, they did. So I think last year we didn't see the committee hold the Big Ten championship title as high of a standard, but I think this year they will.
Yeah, like I said last year, it was just hard too because this was a matchup between number 4 and number 8. Last year it was just Penn State, who was ranked very high. So this win, obviously, for Ohio State means a little bit more. And for the team, I mean, you could tell how ecstatic they were with this win. They've been saying all year, Big Ten East title, Big Ten championship. That's all they're letting themselves think about. But as soon as the game was over, when players were asked about whether or not they feel they should be in the college football playoff, they were ready to make their pitch.
They're wiping up the confetti right now.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gone.
It's gone.
Wow.
It's all gone.
Well, the playoffs will come out later today, so we'll know soon.
Yeah.
But make sure to tune in to another Silver Bulletin tomorrow, and see you at the bowl game after that.
I thought you were going to say see us at the playoff.
See ya.